There, yeah.
Board members, you have a copy of the agenda.
Will you just let me know so I can make sure it is?
I'd like to amend the agenda and add the pledge and inspiration. So, second. It is all in favor? It is approved. If you will, please stand. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for letting us be here today. Thank you for all the many blessings that you've given us in our county. Thanks for all the awards and the new gym and facilities that we've gotten. They're just amazing, and the county deserves it. Just be with us as we make these decisions. I know they're hard decisions, but just lead us and guide us and direct us through these trying times. Just be with everybody in the county, all the students as they go into the summer, help them have a good summer. And just thank you for all your many blessings. In Jesus' name, amen. Next on the agenda, superintendent report.
All right, so we're meeting today to take a look again at the budget. We presented an initial budget a couple weeks ago and talk with you guys. You guys want us to go back and take a look at some things and see if we can lock that budget deficit number down. What I'm proposing today has done that. We cut that deficit number in half, our proposed deficit. And again, I'll reiterate, this is with using our revenue projections based on this year. So this is with no additions to local revenue whatsoever. So depending on local revenues, when the tax digest comes in, we'll have a better sense of, hopefully that number is going to go significantly down, but we don't want to project on hope. So we're going to project on what we had last year and go from there. The big items that we were able to work on there, we decreased the section at the very top of the budget by 3 positions. We've had 3 resignations since we last met, and we do not have to fill those positions. We have space in-house to take care of those. We've actually had another one and possibly another since that we're working through, but we did not change anything based on what I've given you. So we left that the same. We also decreased in the below the first line section where we talk about our contracted staffing positions. We were able to eliminate some positions there. We're working through that now. We had $3,000, we had a credit with the Creative Arts Guild based on paying some money this year and rescheduling, and some things happened. We didn't get the performances we typically get, so they gave us a credit for next year, so we don't pay that. And then in speaking with our transportation director, we have worked on contracting some routes this year, and he believed that with people leaving over the summer, which is typical, we can take those routes and move them back to where they were and do some condensing of routes based on the driver data that we have. So that's where the deletion of $990,050 comes from, which takes the preliminary deficit from 1.9 million down to 945,000. So right at in half is where we cut that. We also had, in addition to revenue, school nutrition got with us, and they've got some extra money that they pay us along the way for services and different things throughout the year. So that went in the revenue side as well. So 990,000 in deletions, and then the extra revenues that came there, and that's where you get to that current deficit projection. So what I'm asking today, for some questions, you're always welcome to ask, but I would ask to advertise this budget as it is presented here. Of course, we'll continue working on it. The advertisement is a snapshot in time of where we are, and we'll work off of that document to be able to continue to work it down. And we would advertise it for 2 weeks. We'd be able to vote on and pass the budget at the next meeting in June, the regular meeting.
Question,
Yes.
if I understand this right, there is no positions being eliminated with a direct impact on students as far as instruction.
No, we did everything we could to avoid having to deal directly with instruction. There, like I said, the teaching positions are there, but those are ones that we can fill internally.
Mhm.
So those positions aren't necessarily, kids aren't going to go without instruction because these positions are being taken out of the budget.
Okay.
And we'll do that throughout this summer as teachers resign, as teachers, possibly retire. We'll look closely. Do we have somebody else in the system? Do we have the enrollment numbers to support that? Can we condense within our classes to do that, and we'll look at each situation individually. So it's quite possible that somebody resigns on the summer, and I've got to come back and ask you to rehire somebody for that position, because I don't have anybody to do that, or we need somebody in that position. It may be that somebody resigns and we're able to work it out across schools or within the school. So just know that going forward, each one is being looked at, but we've been able through attrition to work down quite a few positions now this year.
Is that because the enrollment's down?
The enrollment down ultimately, and then in high school, you have to look at scheduling and programs and things like that. High school's a little more difficult. Elementary's pretty cut and dry with numbers. High school's where it gets a little difficult. So Dr. Locke works with our high school principals, our schedule makers over there, and we can look and see, okay, if we have one less teacher of X, you know, can we get our classes in that? And in a lot of cases, we can, because of the enrollment numbers.
That top line there, were the 3 positions, you said there was 2 more that have done, since you printed this?
One more for sure, not at Murray County High School, but at somewhere else.
Okay.
And we have another one that we're looking at, trying to work on to see if we can condense that. And then we'll have more.
So these 2, you don't know whether you're gonna be able to reduce those 2 jobs?
One of them for sure.
One for sure,
Yes.
maybe the other.
The other one I'm not sure about. We didn't want to go in and change these numbers because it happened yesterday. So just know that we've already got at least one, that's about, I think we said right around 90,000 that would come off of this. So we would be in the 800,000.
While you're looking at combining hospital classes or whatever, not filling positions, do you just look specifically at the school, or do you look at the county overall? Because what I don't want to see is Murray County High School having less teachers and overloaded when they're not meeting state requirements as far as where they're supposed to be at already.
Right. We look across the county. Going through this process, the goal was not necessarily going to have the high schools exactly even about stuff. We'll meet it to where the numbers are. But there may be a situation to where it's possible to move somebody from one school to the
Right.
other.
Okay.
You know, those are things that we look into. But there again, when it comes to that, we try to avoid that a little bit if possible, because if I've got a established employee somewhere and they don't want to move, sometimes it doesn't bring the best to the culture of the place they're moving to.
Yeah, and I understand that, but I just don't want the students, or we
Yeah.
don't need, our scores don't need to go down that lower.
Right.
No. On one that I was just looking through this, and I know we're not going back all over everything, but on this big sheet, when we talk about travel, employee expenses, we've increased that $10,000 for this next year.
I think she based that off of, travel was cut down across the board last year.
Okay.
The estimated expenditure in that line item was 11.7 this year, so it was a little more than there. But if you go to other items where travel it was probably less than that. So travel, we try to do that as much through like federal things and stuff as possible. Travel was down, to my knowledge, across the district, and we told them essential travel only.
Right, yeah.
And we've got certain things that we have to go to in
Yeah.
different departments, and certain things at the school level, you know, that they go to, things we send our teachers to. So, but that's been something we've been watching, for sure, and, we'll continue to kind of evaluate each of those as they come up individually.
Okay.
I don't like leaving one place anyway.
Yeah, well, I
Just
just,
like house.
yeah, I knew that, I mean, honestly, we don't need to be traveling if we're in
Yeah,
almost $1 million deficit.
it's
Oh,
just,
you talking about on that very first
Yeah.
page on
Yeah.
the, I think that addition was for the benchmark training.
Yeah.
For the teachers that go to that benchmark training and
Yeah, I think
HGA.
y'all talked about that
Yeah.
in the last.
And that's just an estimate, it may not be, depending on who goes. and-
Right.
And it may not be that much, but
Okay.
I think it was just a placeholder for some money in case those teachers we had to pay them
Okay,
back.
yeah,
a lot of cases with those things, we bring the people here,
Right.
so
Yeah.
that we don't have to travel.
Yeah.
And we've done a pretty good job of trying to do that as much as possible, or we do the training in-house.
Yeah.
That's where instructional coaches or, you know, different staff members with expertise in the system, whether it's at the district level or whatever, they can go and deliver that training out of school and save travel costs.
But I did give Tim the latest travel numbers, he's aware of them, so I mean, I can keep him up to date on what those are.
Good.
And on every program.
so at this time, this is what you feel like all we can do.
I feel like through the summer, we're gonna get lower. but I also don't want to make promises I don't feel like I can't keep. And I would rather err where we are now as far as an advertised budget, and knowing that it's a living document and we can continue to work on it. We could increase revenues here and decrease things here based on what we think might happen, but I would rather base what we've got on what we know has happened, and be for certain about that.
I have a question.
Mhm.
On that first page, the 1997, the P-card reimbursement,
Yes.
it goes up almost $200,000 the next year.
Those are revenues that come in from the school.
Okay, but where's the school getting that much more money then?
They, at the local level, they have their fundraisers, their things that they do individually, that they make. Those are those local purchases that don't have anything to do with the general money. We
Okay.
pay them and they pay us back,
Okay.
essentially.
Okay, on the next page, the extended day CTAE ag,
Yes.
increased 14.5.
Again, don't look at the budgeted number from last year. If you'll go over to the far right number,
Okay,
that's what was spent this year. And so I think, ag pays,
Yeah, so, and I'm not sure exactly what you're looking at. Whenever I gave y'all, all of mine, when I had mine approved, it is an estimation based off what the state gives us. So ag extended year, ag extended day, and also the CTAE extended day, all of that is coming from the state. We only pay our teachers what the state gives us to pay
Okay.
them.
okay.
So, and some systems actually pay 100%, we do not. We don't, we only pay what the state gives us. So, and I wanna say it was about 59%, but ag, CTAE, all of that is coming straight from the state. I get a grant that pays every bit of that.
So what, like Tim was saying, Renda, this column here was this year's budget, okay? The very first column.
Yeah,
Was the
yeah.
budget we're in right now.
I
And
don't
those,
think I like the same paper you
yeah,
got.
those
But it's-
numbers,
It's a good one.
Yeah.
those numbers were based on what the FY '23 school year expenses were. Cause we approved this budget, the very first column for FY '24, okay? When you're looking at this big, long page,
any of those pages.
Any of those
Probably,
pages.
you can see,
Okay, yeah, yeah.
the
yeah.
very first column is the budget that we're in right now, that we're getting ready to close, you
Right.
know. But those expenditures, amounts that are there, were based on what was spent in FY '23. That's how you come up with what you're gonna need for the next school year.
Gotcha.
So if you'll compare the second column, which is what I'm saying is FY '26,
Mhm.
to what we think is gonna be the expense out here on the very end,
Yeah,
that's the column you're comparing.
okay.
Now compare '23 to '26.
Well, that's what well,
Yes.
And it's easy to do with the
24,
right.
25,
Yeah.
next to 26. is what
Exactly.
I was looking
I
at.
just give you that column because that's what is there right now.
Yeah.
But that
okay.
doesn't mean that was what is, that's all the money that was spent. That's not true.
Okay,
The last column, I try to give you an estimate of what is gonna be spent this year. And because we're not done with this year, it's just an estimate. The salaries and benefits are pretty true.
yeah.
Because you can take those times 12 and you can come up with a number. But I have no idea how many widgets he's gonna buy, you know. All I can do is estimate what I think he's gonna spend for the remaining school year. So when on that very last page where I gave you the $1.4 million deficit,
Mhm.
that is an estimate. And you all, you have to know that the only way we know what it's gonna be is in September. That's when we know what it truly is, and that's when all the revenues come in and the expenditures have gone out. But based on a pretty, I try to be conservative, but I don't try to skew the numbers, I think it's gonna be somewhere there, but it may be 1.6 million, it may be 1.2 million, it may be 1.8 million. We'll know when it's over, and I hate to be that way, but that's what a budget is. So, the estimate that's out here on the end is the actuals that have been spent already, plus what I think it's gonna take to finish out the remaining months. Okay?
The electricity,
Yes.
we're gonna, what ways are we gonna do it?
Chris, we talked about our last leadership meeting, tighter controls, if that's the best way to put it, on some things?
We have some options with the existing control system that we have. We have a system in every one of our buildings. Murray would be one, North Murray would be another, Bagley and Woodlawn, of course. Y'all know about the controls over there, but the existing control system that we already have in place, we have a lot of things that we can do with as far as adjusting the power consumption. And we can talk about this for hours if you wanted to, but probably right now is not the time and place. But for not a whole lot of money, there are certain things that we could do to probably knock off 30%, 25, 30% or more. It just depends on how aggressive that you got with. A lot of school systems do it. But we can use what we have, to work on power consumption. 30% or 40% of our overall power bills, chunk of change, a lot of money. It's something to consider.
Yes.
And like we were talking about in the administration meeting, if you make it work, the only way that you're gonna make it work is once you make that decision, you gotta stick with it. Or you'll blow all your savings out of the water. But there's potential there, that's what I'll say. It's a long conversation. You have to get really into the weeds with you to talk about it. Now may not be the time to do that, but we have the potential to do that. That's what I'll say.
And what we talked about is, let's investigate that, and maybe investing a little bit of money this year to take care of a few things here and there in a few buildings. But what we did not do is go in and knock off 20% of our power bill on this budget. Because I would rather us come way under what we said we would come than to promise something and not be able to get to it because we're kind of working through some
Yeah,
things.
because even investing a little bit, and you still would, if you stick with it,
Yes.
you could have 20, 25, 30% of the.
You can ease into it. When I say you have to be dedicated to it, but you do not have to go full bore.
Yeah,
Out of the gate. You do not have to do that, but you can start implementing certain things that will absolutely help over a period of time, and you can ratchet it up as you need to. Does that make sense?
And that's where we thought we would kind of leave it, as we looked in that line item, as we were talking about some things. I believe it was, we've got it budgeted at 1.5 million. This year, we're gonna spend just south of 1.4, 1.392. And so rather than drop that down 200,000 to give a false sense of it, it's like, let's do it. And it will come off as the year goes on. So when I talk about the budget being a living document that we continue to work from, that's kind of the things I'm talking about, where we could go in right now, I could knock that down to 1.3, and we could knock the budget down 200 more thousand, but I don't want to give a false sense of something. I would rather work it on the backside and, I guess, under-promise and over-perform as to over-promise and under-perform. But those are things that we're working at, to see if we can find some savings.
Is there any other questions?
Let's see.
Hunter, do you have anything else?
I have one question about the technology van that was given to maintenance.
Yes.
How many other vehicles does technology have?
As far as
Like
new
work,
vehicles, old vehicles,
well, work vehicles that can be used.
so we have right now 2 vans right now. The other stuff's just older stuff that we're hoping to get replaced in the near future. So just the 2 vans right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
That are used by tech.
Tech.
Yes. Okay.
And that's why we were trying to find, because those other ones are so old, we worry about them being out, and so we thought we could find something small just to get people where they need to go.
Yeah, because I was told they have none, and then there's one, and I didn't know, that's why I was
No,
trying to,
yeah.
I didn't want them to be out of no vans. And
There's a tech person at each school, right?
Well, they share schools.
They do share, okay.
That's what will happen next year. As like I said, as we've cut some positions at the central office, 2 of those came from tech that were not rehired, they weren't cut, they just weren't rehired. So the school techs are gonna split schools next year, to kind of make up for those losses there. And that's kind of what we've done, like at the school level where we're condensing, that's what we've done at the central level. So it's that same process of when those spots arise, what can we do? But like I said, if I've got good people in good positions, it's not fair to just, hey, you don't have a job anymore.
Right,
You know,
exactly.
those people have been with our system for a long time, have been very good employees. And so we'll find those spots as they arise, and we'll address them when the opportunity comes.
Have you condensed any more in the central office?
I think we have another one at enrollment where we had 2 listed. I think we're gonna be at 1.5. And I think we're gonna have a split position. We're still working through that, which would put us at 44.5. And like I said, our central office position number for next year is gonna match what it was in 2013. So like, we've cut 5 to 6 in the last year and a half, because it's everybody that has to pitch in and fill those things. So we still have one more little thing we're working on, that we may split position, an executive secretary in enrollment. We're working.
Any other questions?
One more. Find it.
Can I ask a question? Okay.
Yes, sir.
You talked about condensing bus routes. Generally speaking, that usually means longer bus routes. Have y'all got an idea what kind of impact that's gonna have on kids getting home after school?
And throughout the year, we've worked to combine some things to shorten routes. So really, we'd be going back to what they were kind of previously. That would be more in the logistics area there. And every year it's different. And this is what our transportation director would say, like, it's hard to predict in May what the routes are gonna look like in August. But we do have quite a few routes that are pretty short. And so we've got some areas where we can do that at. And that's kind of what we're gonna work toward in order to make that happen. But some routes will be lengthened, but right now, our routes are pretty short. And I say that as somebody who had to ride all the way up to Tenia every day, and was the last one off the bus, and so I remember those days.
So we're gonna have library personnel in every school.
Yes, media specialists.
Yes, because I seen it was like 9, 8, I think last year maybe, and that was 10, so now we're back up to.
Yeah, I think we had somebody that was in their own place or something like that, but we'll have a media specialist, except for Peebus. I don't think Peebus doesn't have a media specialist, but all the others.
But there's no media.
The media specialists were good.
Aides, parapros.
Currently, we have parapros, yes.
So next, we're having parapros next year too?
Currently, we have parapros.
Okay.
When does the tax digest come out?
Summer, late summer. August, I think, is that usually? August.
We'll start working on it as soon as the assessment notices go out. They're scheduled to go out 1st of June. We got 45 days for appeal from the date that they go out. And then we will, we have to have it to the state of Georgia by September 1st in order to get the bills out by October 1st. So we'll be working on it June and July and have it to the commissioner's office in Atlanta, Department of Revenue for approval and authority to bill and collect. So it's right here on us.
And we usually start doing, we have those meetings in August. If, you know, the digest goes up and it calls for a, you know, tax increase, and that's when we have the 3 call meetings. Last year, of course, our digest went down. And the rollback rate actually would have been higher than the regular millage rate, but we left it the same, so.
And of course, the budgets on both sides have to be set, millage rate, so, you know, that's all part of it.
That's the fun part of doing a budget in April and May with revenues.
Any other questions?
Does that put us in a better position, I'm guessing also on the school buses needing for,
Less routes,
Yeah.
less buses.
Yeah.
Essentially.
which we were not doing so well on?
We've added, how many buses the last couple of years, I think? Approximately?
Well, we just added 2, special needs bus.
Yeah.
But I think on the 72 passengers, probably 3 to 4, I'm thinking, but now it could be as high as 10. I remember we got a big chunk of money, a couple of years back.
Yeah.
And I think we bought all 10 buses. So, there has been improvements. There are
Right.
some new buses out there, but not as many as you have old buses.
Right.
I mean, you know, it's just, it's hard to keep up with the aging buses that we have.
Yeah.
He's had quite a few of them reworked too, is that
Yeah.
right?
They've been refurbished and redone and, keeping them going as long as they can, I'm sure.
And the refurbished buses are about half the price of the new bus,
Yeah.
essentially. Maybe just a tad more than half, but so we've gone that route. Next year, we did not put anything in the budget for that. We upped the maintenance a little bit. As the year goes on, we'll be able to kind of see where we are there. But we just needed to take a little pause with bus purchases because we have had several purchases the last few
I
years.
didn't see any either in the governor's budget either. I didn't see any new money for bus purchases, so, I just requested the 88,000 for the bus we just bought, for the special needs bus, so.
Anything else? Do we want to go ahead and?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I need a motion that we approve that, or advertise the budget as presented.
Please make a motion.
Thank you, Sheila. Second,
Second.
Kelly, all in favor? It is approved.
Next up, as part of the budget, we talked about our cleaning contract. And so it was in this budget. We can approve the cleaning contract in June, but I just wanted you guys, if you had any questions about it while Chris was here. In the budget, we proposed moving on from our current contract to a new contract. In part, we were gonna do this last year, but the HES, the new company, was about $300,000 more. And we did not feel comfortable spending that this year to do that. Our current contractor is raising their rate by about 15%, which puts it pretty much on par with the new company we'd like to go with. That last year, our committee approved unanimously, references from all systems that use it, talked about how this company made such a huge difference in their schools as far as the cleaning. I know you guys had questions, we talked about this, when one company comes in, another company, and then leaves, you just hire the same people and move on. With this company, yes and no. We've submitted some names that we'd like to have rehired because they're great employees, and they will take care of the rest. I think the new company does probably a better job on the management look-after side, because in a building, I know how it is at night. And so if you've got good nighttime people, you're set. If you've got nighttime people that don't work well unsupervised, a lot of these companies don't supervise them as much. But I think this company, Chris, that was one of the high points they talked about was their supervision.
It was, and that's one of the things we talked about with all of the potential applicants that we interviewed, you know, and what we had said. And we had, I think, 3 elementary principals and a high school principal in that meeting. And, you know, what we had told them is your nighttime folks are gonna make or break it. And that's very true. And HES seemed to have the best program going of any of them. And that was kind of confirmed by the references that we had called all over, even out of the state of Georgia. They had a lot of really good references, and we all felt like that was a company that we needed to go with.
Where are they at?
Nashville, I think, or Knoxville, Nashville or Knoxville, I can't really remember, but Nashville.
I
I think it's one of the
Kentucky
two.
could people that from Tennessee.
Now, did you use them in your school system before? Did y'all have? Okay.
Our current folks are out of California.
Okay, I thought they were from somewhere off far.
You said enough.
And I think we talked too that we're gonna ask them for that night crew to turn off the lights.
Yeah.
If they would just turn off the lights.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say, that would be better for money right
Shut the
there.
doors.
Yeah.
The lights stay on all night long. and
Yeah,
the
plus like,
principals
cause
will tell you
I'll
they
go by
can-
sometimes and
Yeah.
it's light.
Every light in the house is on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so there's a savings if they'll just turn off the lights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one thing that I noticed the other day, we were coming up, going south on 225, and like the outside lights, like at Woodlawn, were burning, middle of the day. So I don't know if that's like a sensory kind of thing, or what?
Well,
You know what I'm talking about?
the control system that I'm gonna ask you to. That'll help me out a lot with that, but the outside lights, the inside lights, on both Bagley and Woodlawn are actually controlled through a control system. It was like that, I would never let that go on a building of mine, but that's what was there when they built the building. I don't agree with it, but that's what I got to work with.
And it can be fixed, you can
Yes,
fix
it
it?
can be.
Okay.
So it operates both schools?
That one,
They do.
yes.
They're pretty
You
bright.
have one head end at Bagley that operates both schools, which is crazy, but.
Yeah,
But that's how that operates.
Yeah.
So any other questions for Chris about that? We're not voting on anything today, we're not voting to approve the contract, we can do that in June, but we have to give our current one a certain notice timeframe
30 days.
so that they can finish their job, and then we can begin with the new one July 1. So we just wanted to make sure, the budget, it's in there for that, and we feel really good about that. I think our schools will be extremely happy with that, and the ones that were on those committees spoke to that last year when we talked about it, and a couple weeks ago.
So will HES do the waxing?
I think it'll be partial, like they may start some in June, and then new HES would finish it in July.
Correct. So they will be under contract. KBS, our current contract employer, will be, they would have to do floors through the month of June. And I don't know that they'll get all of them done, but I've been in contact with HES, the new company, and they said that if they're approved, then they would be on site, or management would be on site through the month of June to not supervise, but just to make sure what was going on, what was done, what hasn't been done, and that way when July 1 rolls around, they'll know what they're up against and they can get everything complete before 1st September.
Does this HES, is it okay if I ask that HES? Okay, do they have other systems around here so that we're like they're not going to do, for instance, Whitfield and leave us and?
The closest one that I know of that they're doing, that I know of is Dawsonville.
Okay.
There may be another one, that's what I know.
HES will be more of the management side of things, and they'll hire the employees. Of course, the employees will be local. Some of the ones that we have now, they're good employees, we certainly want back. And then they'll, really, when it comes to that in-school custodial stuff, it's the management, it's the relationship you build with those, the upper managers, but also the ones that kind of come and check on the day-to-day.
Yeah.
More about the cleaning?
How often is that, how often do you bid on that? Like, how often does that change? Like, what's the contract timeframe?
What they are asking for is a 5-year contract, but to be honest with you, it doesn't matter. You have a 30-day cancellation notice, so it could be 5 years, it could be 50 years. If they're not performing, 30 days written notice, and we can go get somebody else. So the contract length is, to me, it's neither here nor there. If they're doing us a good job, and, we're happy with them, then we can certainly stay with them. What I would suggest is probably every 4 years, even if they're doing a pretty good job, is put an RFP out just to see what's out there, confirm pricing, are you getting the best price, that sort of thing. You don't have to change, but you at least need to know what's out there and the pricing that's available.
Yeah.
Every 3 years, every 4 years, somewhere in that neighborhood is a pretty good time frame to do that.
And that's what we did last year. Just some due diligence to see what was out there, and that's where we found this company. And
Yes.
we really wanted to go with them last year, but with the budget things the way it was when we were this time last year, it was like, we just can't do that at that time. But with the raise in price, it was kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
All right, next up, we've got a couple of board policy amendments, one that you guys have asked for, and then one that we have talked for in the past. On the board policy JCBD, if I remember right, that's the transfers and withdrawal policy. The only thing that was changed was at the very end, and it's where we'll follow the board policy unless, and in that enforcement, it comes down to questions for me, and that's where if there are siblings, you guys don't have to approve that. If there are siblings even outside of feeder patterns, you guys don't have to approve that. They don't have to come before the board and petition you. We added in K3 there to give some leniency to y'all, where we don't have to have people coming in all the time. But also with pre-K going to the buildings, we may have somewhere that where somebody, they may not get into pre-K at their home school and they might be at another school and they want to stay there. And so I can handle that because I can see the numbers and make that decision. So that's the amendment there. And then in the nepotism policy, which you guys had asked about, we added in there that has to do with supervision of a family member. Basically, the current nepotism policy has to do with board and superintendent things. So we added in that, or at your request, that you won't have anybody in supervision, direct supervision of a family member. Now, we've got one situation I know of, I can't think, maybe there's another, but we said we would grandfather in those that are there. But going forward, that'll make it clear for principals and for folks when they're hiring, that's something they can look to. It doesn't affect working with family members, it really just has to do with supervision of family members.
What would happen if, say there's a husband and wife at a school and one of them gets promoted to AP?
They would have to be in a
What
different
happens
school.
then? They would have to go to the different school or the.
Either way.
Either one.
One of
They
them,
have to.
based on this policy,
Okay.
one of them would have to be somewhere different.
Okay.
All right, next on the agenda, board discussion. There is none. I need a motion that we'll go into executive session.
So moved.
Linda,
Second.
Tony, all in favor? It's approved. We're in executive session.